Good vibes, everybody. I want to thank you for coming to another Political Puff conversation. And this conversation is going to be pretty deep, you know. It's going to challenge some perceptions we've had with the Bible, so I wanted to take a look at, some things inside of this book. So I called the title Genocide in the Bible, Part 1. And I called it that because there are some things that I am questioning that as a kid, I didn't know how to address. But as an adult, having my own children and living life, my perception has changed. So I wanted to show the book that I'm working with. It's the King James. Take a minute to show you that right there. And we're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 11, verse 4 and 5. So we're going to be looking at the Passover. Yes, I have a problem with the Passover. At the end of the day, a lot of kids were killed. And we're living in a time right now where even in our 2000, living in the year 2020, whatever it is that we are, 2020, 2021, 22, whatever, living in these times, we're dealing with children who are mass killed, So when I looked at the Passover, it kind of bothered me on a multitude of levels. So we want to look at Exodus 11, verse 4 and 5. And I'm going to just read those right there. And it says, and Moses said, "Thus says the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt." And it says, "And all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon his throne, even upon the firstborn of the maiden that is behind the mill, and all of the firstborn of the beast." That did kind of bother me. I guess one reason why it bothered me, there's a lot of innocence inside of this. There's a lot of innocence. There's a lot of people who don't have nothing to do with the Israelites being captured, who's getting ready to suffer this wrath, I'm really looking at this. One part that really took me, in verse 5, it said, "Even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill." I kind of thought about that. I said, the maidservant behind the mill. This person is a poor person. This person isn't wealthy. That person doesn't have any ability to make the fortunes better or worse for the Israelites. And yet this maidservant is about to lose her child, and she has nothing to do with this. The thing that I guess this is really rolling me is I never thought that I'd be reading anything that would justify the death of children. To read something that justifies the death of a baby. That whole action right there makes me question that God. Like, that God doesn't seem to be the one creator, because that which gives life, it seems so bestiality to go and kill a newborn that you just allowed to come into the world, It don't make no sense. I get the Israelites are being held hostage. I'm like, if this God wants to show that he has might, why not kill Pharaoh and all his guards? They'll learn in the afterlife of who he is, and then it's settled. They'll learn everything that he wanted them to see. It doesn't make no sense to kill the newborns of every kid. I don't care if this is your enemy. You got to sometimes look at it like this. There's this criminal, he knows where the hostages is. And you break into his house. He got his wife and kids, and you grab him up. And you're telling him, tell me where the hostages are. So then you start killing his family off in order to get to the hostages. I don't think you made anything better with that method. And it's the same thing going on with the Israelite situation. It's like, well, if you don't let them go, I'm going to kill all these kids off. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right at all. I don't believe that you had to kill, or this God had to kill, the firstborn of any children. Children are innocent. These were babies who didn't have no decision to make. Like I said, it's mind-blowing to read something that creates or has a reason. It has a reason for why a newborn needs to die. That is insane, that there is a reason out there for why a newborn need to die. Like, these newborns needed to die in order to prove to Pharaoh that the Israelite God was real. Why not him kill Pharaoh himself? I mean, in the end, Pharaoh died anyway. The water fell all on him. So he died anyway. What was the sense of killing those kids when he's going to die anyway? He died anyway. One thing I realize is you're allowed to question this book, especially as an older person. We live in a world where kids are mass killed off. And somewhere in that decrepit world, they have a reason for why kids should be killed, whether it's for their blood or adrenal. Who knows? But when I read this over here in Exodus, literally, because Pharaoh won't let some hostages go, the God of the Israelites kill off babies. That looks like genocide. That looks like a blood sacrifice. The firstborn of the animals, the first babies, that sounds and reeks of a blood sacrifice. One thing I've learned is the people who have edited the Bible has placed things in there that I don't know were there from the beginning. Like, I don't know if the Passover, if that is really true, I wouldn't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that. If you look at where we're at right now, it reeks of child killing. It reeks of a sacrifice, and I know it's shrouded around the Israelites. I know it's shrouded around them, like it's to free them. But, when you just look at it, it's like there are so many ways to handle that right there. There are so many ways, that God could have handled that. But to kill, and that's why I looked at the maidservant that was said was behind the mill. This is someone who don't have nothing to do with this. She ain't got nothing to do with this. She can't change nothing, even if she wanted to. Even if she wanted to free them, she couldn't give that order. And yet she's going to lose her kid. I watch many Israelites talk about the Passover like it's a great thing, like God came and saved us. The Most High that I look at and I believe in doesn't kill kids. It doesn't have a reason to kill a kid. Like a horse can get up on day one and walk. A baby cannot. And yet the Passover creates a reason for why babies had to be killed. There should be no reason in the world that a baby should die. There should be no reason in the world that a baby should die. And yet there's one. All these babies died to teach one man a lesson who was holding somebody hostage, holding people hostage. It doesn't match right. So something that I've also noticed is, the God of Abraham is the Israelite God. The God of Moses is the Israelite God. The God of Noah is the Israelite God. The God of Adam is the Israelite God. If you turn your pages, I'm going to give you a chance to go there too. Genesis chapter 9, verse 5. If you turn your pages there to Genesis chapter 9, verse 5. I guess this is the reason why I said the Passover reeks of a sacrifice, and the animals, the firstborn animals were killed and the children were killed, though it's shrouded to look like it was meant to show Pharaoh or teach Pharaoh a lesson, So I wanted to look at this. Chapter 9, Genesis chapter 9, verse 5. And this is the God of Noah, which is the God of the Israelites. This is him giving his decree. It says, "And surely your blood of your lives will I require." It says, "At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man." And then it says, "At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man." When you look at that more thoroughly, "And surely your blood of your life will I require." This God is requiring you to sacrifice yourself. It says, "At the hand of every beast will I require it." So, and it says, "and at the hand of man." So it's like saying it requires man to also take the life of the beast. Then it says, "At the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man." So it's expecting a man to basically sacrifice his family, sacrifice another man or kill another man whenever this God calls for it. See, this God, it's already in the business of demanding life. So I can understand when it gets down to the Israelites and we're over dealing with Passover, it has no problem killing kids. It has no problem killing babies. It says, "And surely your blood of your lives will I require it." This God requires the life of man. "At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man." This God requires the sacrifice of animals. "And at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man." This God requires the life of your child, like what Abraham was getting ready to do. See, this God doesn't have a problem with taking the life of children. The Passover literally creates a reason for why babies had to die. For me, there's no reason for why a baby had to die. I don't care how bad their mother or father is. That's not a reason to kill a baby. That baby you leave alone. And if the mother and dad was wrong and they spilt blood, then they spilt blood. But the baby doesn't die because the mother and father was wrong. The Israelite God demands sacrifice. That's why I said that Passover reeks. It reeks of sacrifice. The firstborn animal, that's sacrifice. The first kids, that's sacrifice. It was like in order for the Israelites to be freed, a blood sacrifice had to be made. Christians eat the Passover up. It doesn't bother them that a whole bunch of babies died, because in their mind, a certain group that God wanted is being set free. But I'm asking, if that God was so great, why did he have to kill babies? Something that is defenseless, something that can't fight, something that can't feed itself, something that's barely understanding that it has any existence. It's so weak to kill a baby when you have strong soldiers with blood on their hands that he could have went after. He could have went after Pharaoh and just killed all that, and the Israelites walk out. If you have the ability to send spirits over to kill off kids, then you could have killed Pharaoh. When you're raised in the church, you're taught to not ask no questions and accept it as this is God's will. Well, one thing I'm going to tell you, that the book has more than one God. You have a singular God in the Bible, and then you do have the Lord of hosts that's in the Bible. You know, there is more than one God. I know that the Israelite God is not the one single creator. I'm going to jump way over here to Hosea chapter 6, verse 6. So we heard how Noah's God talks about wanting the sacrifice of the man, sacrifice of the animal, the sacrifice of the brother. And what I'm saying is for that whole Passover to have killed children, and the whole focus of it was to kill children, I'm calling that a blood sacrifice. It was a blood sacrifice that was needed in order to free, I guess, the Israelites. But I also say that Passover story creates a reason for why innocent, harmless babies had to die. It does not matter that it belongs to Pharaoh's people. Like I said, the maiden behind the mill, she had nothing to do with this. Yet she's going to lose her child. There's been many stories of people living in a wicked kingdom, but it doesn't mean the subjects are bad. And it's the exact same way. You don't go off and kill a whole bunch of babies because you're mad at Pharaoh. It don't make no sense. Hosea chapter 6, verse 6. It says, and this is the one God talking, for I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. Moses is all about sacrifice. But this section right here speaks of not even authorizing sacrifice. For I desire mercy and not sacrifice. Chapter 6, verse 6. For I desire mercy and not sacrifice. If this is the case, then what God is over the Israelites and has ordered the death of all those babies in order for the Israelites to be freed? Because that God right there can't be the same as what I'm looking at in Hosea. And the one in Hosea is like, for I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. So this God doesn't even like what they do in Leviticus. This God is opposite of the Israelite God. The Israelite God requires sacrifice to the point where Noah was told to do it, Abraham was told to do it, and now in order for the Israelites to be freed, a whole bunch of babies died inside of the Passover. Yes, I'm picking on all them babies dying because I don't feel like it was necessary. You could have killed Pharaoh. He could have met God in the afterlife, and that's the biggest lesson that you can ever learn. But to kill something that's defenseless, that cannot defend itself, seems so bestiality, so wrong. That seemed very wrong. But there is a single Most High in the Bible, and then there is a Lord of hosts, like a one with a whole bunch of them with him. And we have to start reading this book a little more thorough. We have to start looking at the stories to try to understand, is this truly what I want to align with? No babies deserve to die. And that's my point with this right here. I don't follow the Israelite God because that God is in chapter 9, verse 5 in Genesis. Their God requires sacrifice, the life of man, the life of animal, the life of his brother. The one that I follow is in Hosea. That's the singular. It didn't require sacrifice. Those words right there alone stops a God from killing children. It's got to be another way. One we like, well, that's your opinion. Yeah, But then again, you also have these people out in the world who's sacrificing children to their gods and to their many gods and to their Lord of hosts, which is a God with many gods. That is happening right now. Children are being sacrificed in the same doggone manner right there, where there is some excuse and a reason for why babies can be killed. I never thought, until I really looked at the Passover, that there could ever be a created reason for why babies had to die in order to free hostages, because that's how I look at the Israelites. They were hostages. But to kill a whole bunch of babies in order to make a man learn, if you have that power, that spirit didn't need to go over no one's home but over Pharaoh and his guards. It's time for us to start evaluating this book, because I really feel like the elite during your 1300s implemented things that should not be in a book. There, to me, has implemented sacrifice inside of the book, and it's been taught to us in such a manner that we accept that those killings, those deaths, we accept it as in like, well, God said it was just. And it's like, well, you might have to question your God. There's no just reason to kill children. If that's the case, I would say to that God, you're the control of everything. Why bring them in the world if you're going to turn around and kill them? Why kill these kids and let them have the moment to scream of death, of to even reek of death, to experience that? That's horrible. If you're the bringer of life. But again, I don't see the Israelite God as that. I know that their God is the Lord of hosts. And the Lord of hosts is exactly what is required. Chapter 9, verse 5 in Genesis, that's what that host requires. And this is the reason why Passover feels like a sacrifice in order for the Israelites to be freed. There was no reason for children to have to die in order to make an example to a man. That is crazy. If you got that power, kill that man. That's what I'm saying. But again, you're being taught to accept the death of kids. So you got to live with that in your conscience. Just like we live right now in the year 2000 with kids being killed off to some God, somebody still has made a reason for why children should be killed. And that's what I have a problem with the Passover. This Passover creates a reason for why children should be killed. And that is wrong. No matter if it's your enemy, that is wrong. That's a baby. It is off limits. It is not a part of the war. But I'm going to let y'all go. We got to read this book to show ourselves approved, You can't let other people read this book to you. You have to read it and understand, is the values that's going on in this book truly fit you, But you have to read it for yourself. You got to stop letting a minister read it to you and then you repeat it back the way that he read it. You need to read the book yourself and see, do you come to the same conclusion? Because Passover right now makes me look at blood sacrifice of children. All right, y'all. Like and subscribe. I bring those conversations. This is just a religious debate, but I'm getting ready to bring out part 2, to this conversation right here. So like and subscribe and stay tuned and have a safe day.